Welcome to Problem Solve, the podcast where me and a special co-host solve all your problems really easily, probably.
Problems? Are you kidding me? I don't have any problems. Okay, I might have a few, but I can work on them with you. Come on.
Hello, and welcome to Problem Solved. I'm Jeff Gunther, licensed professional counselor, and this is a solo episode. I will be answering lots of your questions as quickly as I possibly can. I've got some bad news. Just going to get right to it, tear the Band-Aid off. This is the last episode of Problem Solved. Oh, I'm sad. It feels like it's the end of an era. You know what I don't like about when podcasts end? Like if I'm a podcast fan and they end or they abruptly change or something, it's like you don't really get to know the full story of why it's happening. And you're going to also be left with that. I'm sorry, you're not going to know the full story. I will say that I'll give you some of the story. First of all, the podcast network called Wave Podcast Network, they're great. I love the guy who runs it. I'm friends with some of the other podcasters. It's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with Wave Podcast Network. Also, I know me, and I know that like for me to create the best quality content ever, I have to not be working for someone or with someone. I need to have complete control over my own podcast. So there's that. There's also like, it's just kind of is a little more tricky. I don't know if tricky is the right word, but a little more daunting being the only host of Problem Solved. I'd like it if I had a regular co-host. So that will be something I explore in the near future with all of your feedback. So I also want to say that even though this is the end of Problem Solved, and my other podcast, Big Dating Energy, just sort of faded out because it was too hard to have two podcasts at the same time. I will take a break, maybe a month or two or three, and I will be back with a brand new podcast. So you should follow me on Instagram. And if TikTok still exists, follow me there. But Instagram is where I make most of my big updates. Also, follow me on YouTube. I'm going to start posting longer form content there if you're interested. So I do better when I'm working solo, when I'm running the whole show, which means editing, producing, coming up with like social clips, and also not having to split the money with anybody else. Like with a podcast network, happy to split the money with co-hosts. So that's just me, and that's why this is happening, basically. There might be a little more to it, but you don't have to know every single detail, right? You can just sort of accept what is and what's happening. So because this is the last episode and I'm here alone and there's no guardrails to keep me from going off the rails, I might give answers to some of your questions that are just like, sort of fuck it. Like I'm just going to be really, really honest and maybe not the most therapeutic. Also, something that's making me feel just a little overwhelmed and frustrated today is that my internet stopped working and I had to be on an hour and a half worth of phone calls and chats with Comcast, Xfinity, and that just like makes me want to blow my fucking brains out. I hate it. I hate it. Do not worry, I'm not actually going to hurt myself. That does remind me though, recently in one of my own therapy sessions, I was talking to my therapist and I kept on saying, like, I'm so upset. And if this gets any worse, I'm going to blow my fucking brains out, which is like, you shouldn't just toss that out in therapy, but you can if you like feel like your therapist gets it. And she gets it. She wasn't worried that I was actually going to harm myself, but she did say, can we stop using the blow your fucking brains out visual? Because I can't stop thinking about how horrible that might be or disgusting. And I did. Because, I don't want to make her squirm. But also, I love the expression, I'm going to blow my fucking brains out. I think I say it really well, and I think it's really funny. It's not funny if you're being really honest about how you're feeling and you might hurt yourself, then it's a serious issue. Did you know that I worked at a suicide crisis line as my first job 20 years ago after I got my master's degree in marriage and family therapy? Got my master's from the University of Southern California, USC, go Trojans, I guess. I don't care about their football team. or sports or school. It was way too fucking expensive. I should have not gone to USC. I should have gone to Cal State Northridge, which I applied to, and that would have cost me $3,000 a semester. And instead, USC was $15,000 a semester. Not worth it. Anyways, I what was I? Oh, I got my master's degree. 2 weeks later, drove up to Portland from Los Angeles and started my private practice. And I was incredibly overwhelmed and felt like I wasn't prepared. So I stopped doing the private practice like 6 weeks into it. And then I just started applying for jobs, like agency jobs, nonprofit jobs, jobs at hospitals, jobs at group therapy practices. And oh my God, I was the worst interviewer ever. I was a baby. I was 24, baby therapist, and I'd never gone on an adult interview. I'd had many jobs before. My first job was when I was 15 years old, and I worked at Boston Market. Do you remember that? Some people call it Boston Chicken, but it's called Boston Market. There was chicken, turkey, meatloaf, ham, and lots of sides like cream spinach and mashed potatoes and corn, etc. I got free food at Boston Market once per shift, and it made me, I ate it, but then I'd go home and I would pee out of my butthole. That was the deal I made with Boston Market food. It's free, but you're going to go, there's going to be so much diarrhea, and it's just going to be so. Okay. I think it's a really great expression when you say, like, I had to pee out of my butthole, because you know what diarrhea is, but you know what peeing out of your butt. Okay. Anyways, moving on. Maybe you don't like that. But I encourage you to use the peeing out of your butthole phrase because it really packs a punch. Where am I going with this podcast? It doesn't matter. This is the last episode. I swear I will get to your questions, but we're going to go on a journey first. Okay, so I worked at a crisis line. I went on like 20, 25 interviews, totally bombed them. 75% of them, I had straight up panic attacks, and the walls were blurry, and I was sweating, and I just wanted to get the fuck out of there. So yeah, nobody hired me until I worked at this crisis line downtown Portland, and I won't name it, but you know who you are. And if you're in Portland, you probably know who this is. But it's interesting because it's not a nonprofit crisis line that's like run by the city where you can just call and talk to a counselor. It's a for-profit crisis line, and they had an interesting business model where they would pick up the line for any county in the country, in the nation, and all over the world that couldn't pay for or staff their own crisis line. So every time a call would come in, you would have to like see which city it's coming in through on the computer, and you'd say something like, "Hi, this is Jeff. I'm a counselor at the Fort Lauderdale Crisis Center. How can I help you?" And you would just sort of pretend that you were in Fort Lauderdale so that the person felt like maybe they were close or it felt okay, whatever. A little bit of a lie, but just a white lie to create a connection. So no big deal. As you can imagine, working at a crisis line is really difficult. It's really, really hard. We would work 10-hour shifts. I'd work 4 days a week. The pay was good for a 24-year-old. They gave really great benefits, 8 weeks of vacation per year. That's crazy. It's amazing. The benefits covered acupuncture and massage and like no deductibles. It was amazing, but it was incredibly difficult work. And it was one of those jobs where it's so hard that you end up really like bonding with your coworkers because it's not an actual war zone, but it feels like an emotional war zone, and it feels incredibly heavy. And so when you get off of a call, you just like bond with the person that's next to you. You're just like, oh my God, that was so difficult. Oh my God, this is so hard. But because it was a for-profit line, every time you picked up the phone, the company would make something like $15 a call. I'm sure it's more than that now. But so they wanted you to go through as many calls as you possibly could. And so if you were on a call for more than 12 minutes, they would be like, you should really get off. But it was really weird and difficult because you were talking to somebody in crisis sometimes. And if there was too many people on hold, there's like a big red light that would flash in the middle of the counseling center. And then if it was too many people on hold, even more, then there'd be like a little alarm that would go off and be like, ugh. It was a very stressful environment. Um, I got in trouble a couple times. And one of the times was when, we not only answered like crisis lines when people were having an emotional or mental health crisis, but we also answered really random lines like the train reporting accident line. So whenever there's a train accident in the country, they would call the line and say, "This is Jeff. I'm a counselor. Report your train accident." And it was always a police officer that was like on the job. So they wowould call and you write down the train accident and you'd send it off to who fucking knows where. But one time this police officer called and said, "Hey," I think it's from the South, and he was like, "I've got a train versus pedestrian accident to report." But he said it in this sort of like funny, he's like, "I got a train versus pedestrian accident to report." And I was like, "A train versus pedestrian accident? Who won?" Which I should not defend myself. I'm not going to defend myself except for that I thought he was joking around, not a thing to joke around about, and I shouldn't have responded that way, but I did. Keeping in mind, I'm 24 years old, still acting like an adolescent that needs to like grow up, but I have arrested development like we all do in our 20s, right? Anyways, he did not really appreciate when I said who won, and he said, "Let me talk to your supervisor." And so my supervisor got on the phone, and the police officer was like, "Who the fuck is answering your phone? I'm saying there's a train versus pedestrian." He's making a joke about this. And then I get called into like this meeting at the end of the day. There's my supervisor, there's HR, there's the CEO, and they're like, "What? Why are you saying who won? What?" And I was like, you know what? If you listen to the call, you could tell that he was joking, and I was matching his tone like a good therapist should, right? I'm going to use the language that my clients are using. No big deal. So they're like, "Lucky for you, we actually did record the call, and now we're going to play it." And they played it, and it turned out that he wasn't joking as much as I thought he was joking. Maybe he wasn't actually joking at all, but I really heard it as him making a joke. And so they were like, "This isn't good, and you are suspended with pay, but you are suspended." And I was very upset. I went home. I was worried I was going to lose my only job that I didn't even like. And that was the only place that hired me because I had a master's degree and a voice, which meant like I could like answer a phone call and have some compassion for my callers. A few days later, they called me back in. They're like, "Well, you know what? You don't even have to stay out a full week. You can just come back to work." What happened was that the person who trained me, one of the supervisors, she answered a call on a train accident reporting line. That same police officer reported the accident. They said, "I have a train versus pedestrian accident to report." And my trainer said, "Oh, really? Who won?" And that police officer was pissed. But she also thought that it was like a jokey thing. Anyways, there became an alert that would pop up on the screen whenever the train accident reporting line would call, and it would say, "Do not say who won," which I was really proud of. Okay, let's take a quick break and let's talk about something we've all done. You wake up with a funky rash, or your back feels like you slept on a pile of bricks, and what do? You Google it. Suddenly, you are convinced you have 3 rare diseases and 24 hours to live. Fun times, right? But here's the thing. We don't need to live like this. Enter ZocDoc. It is a free app and website, yes, free because we love that, where you can find high-quality in-network doctors and instantly book an appointment. And we're not talking about waiting 6 months to get in like some other doctors I will not name. With ZocDoc, you can see actual appointment openings and book something fast, usually within 24 to 72 hours. Heck, you might even score a same-day appointment. Still not sold? Well, let me throw in this bonus. You can filter by insurance, location, specialty, and even patient reviews. So whether you need a therapist like me, or a dermatologist, or a dentist who doesn't insist on chatting while your mouth is full, ZocDoc has got you covered. So let's stop putting off those appointments, okay? Go to ZocDoc.com/solved and find your perfect doctor today. That is ZocDoc.com/solved. And trust me, once you actually take care of yourself, it's a game changer, babe. Now go book that appointment. You deserve it. Anyway, that was my first job. It was really hard, and I eventually quit a year into it and found another job that was a better fit. I was a child and family therapist at middle schools in the Gresham School District, which is a suburb outside of Portland. Taught parenting classes, which was fun because I'm 25 years old and teaching parenting classes. I don't know. I was a preschool teacher for a year, so I knew a thing. I have an undergraduate degree in child development, so I know what I'm fucking talking about. But it doesn't matter when you're 25 and you have parents that are mandated to go to parenting class and they're 45 years old. So I'm here to answer your questions. I'm also here to drink liqueur so I can get through this 45 minutes to an hour without having a really dry mouth. Yeah, I'm all over the place. All right, let's get into your questions. First question, should I start a BDSM dynamic with a friend, former situationship? No, I would say no. If I'm going to guess, I'm going to say no, you shouldn't do that. However, you should if you want to. You should if you can like establish the boundaries, right? If you can be really upfront with what is going on here, that both of you have the same intentions and you're both in the same emotional place and you know what this is all about, then go for it. If it's really fun and you're both really adventurous, sex positive, a good match in bed and energy and kink wise, then why not? But also probably not a good idea. Just because like it feels like it could be messy, right? You could probably find somebody in the BDSM community who will create a relationship with you instead of going to a former situationship. But you know what? This is my last episode and I don't give a shit. And I think that you should. That's my official answer. Yes, you should. Next question. Also, these are questions that you all submitted through my Instagram stories. Every now and then I say submit questions and I answer them on the pod. And this is more of like a rapid fire kind of thing. Next question. Is it bad for me to wish ill upon my ex of 5 years who cheated and was covertly abusive? Is it bad for you to wish that? Oh, well, first of all, it's normal for you to wish that. I want to validate your experience. I totally get why you feel pain and you feel hurt. And so you want them to feel pain and hurt. And so you want to wish it upon them. The question is those like, is that serving you? Are you feeling a little obsessive? You might be caught in revenge prison, which isn't a great place to be, right? You're giving them so much power and they don't deserve it kind of thing. So, is it normal for you to wish ill upon your ex of 5 years who cheated and was covertly abusive? Incredibly normal. Is it not fair that they're not going to be punished for this? This is a thing that we feel in our hearts. We want our cheating exes to get some sort of form of punishment or karma. Maybe they won't get their karma or that punishment in this life, and that's really upsetting. That's not fair at all. But things aren't fair. Things aren't fair while you're in relationship, and things aren't fair while you're outside of relationship. We should strive for fairness. I do want to acknowledge that. But also we have to accept the fact that especially after a breakup, when it's the most messy at times, it's not going to pan out to be fair. So, normal for you to wish it. Stop fucking wishing it. It's only driving you crazy. Next question. How to have the convo redefining the relationship. Really, I have so many contents on my Instagram and TikTok about like how to define the relationship, questions you should ask your partner when defining the relationship. Like, does anything change? What are our labels? Do you expect that we're going to hang out more? Are you going to be my primary emotional support system now? Or, don't ask any of those fucking questions and just like see what happens. A couple other favorites, questions that I enjoy are, what do you count as cheating, right? Can you flirt with a barista? Can you bring a dog friend home? Is that cheating? Can you play with a dog without allowing your partner to play with it? I don't know why you wouldn't allow your partner. Anyways, what is cheating? Is it flirting? Is it watching porn? Is it hooking up? Is it kissing? Is it cuddling? What is an emotional affair? Can you define that? What a fun conversation for you to have. An even more fun conversation, which is whatever, controversial, you don't have to do this, is how do you want me to break up with you? I think it's a solid piece of advice. It's really helpful if I give you the blueprint of how you would like to break up with me. That said, you can break up with me however you want to fucking break up with me. If you got your own style, if you got your own vibe, if you want to do it whenever you want to do it. But if you're like, I don't know how to break up with this guy, and I'm kind of feeling like I want to, and I want to do it in a way where he's, where he prefers it, then you're going to do it on a Friday. You're going to do it in the early evening so that I have the weekend to recover. You're going to text me. You probably don't like this, but you're going to text me, hey, we need to talk. So I can be like, okay, here it comes. So I can mentally, emotionally prepare. I also have the ability to be like, let's just keep texting, or let's hop on a phone call, or let's do a FaceTime, or meet me in person, babe, right? I get to consent about how, in what form you break up with me. I love that. Breakup sex. Let's see. If we both want to do breakup sex, I'm okay with it. It's a nice goodbye breakup sex. I think that we can handle it as long as we know this is the last sex that we're going to have. Unless we had like amazing sex somewhat recently, the last time we had sex, and let's just keep that the last sex because I want to remember that, right? Anyways, those are just a handful of ways you should break up with me. I'm not answering your question. The question was how to have the conversation. You just start it. There you go. How do you gauge if it's a slow burn or a no burn? I feel like if you're asking this question, it's a no burn. Next question. How do I stop thinking about my ex / comparing them to new partners? Well, first, acknowledge that this is a normal thing that we're doing, that you're going to, whether you're aware of it or not, there's a part of you that's going to be like, okay, this person hugs me this way, this person kisses me this way, this person pays for these meals, and you're comparing it to your last partner and probably all the other partners before, right? So it's normal for you to think about your exes and to compare them to new partners. It could get in the way, though, if you're putting your ex on a pedestal and you're thinking like, they're not as good as my ex because of XYZ. That's really going to get in the way of things. I'm trying to think, do I do this? Is this something that I do? Not all the time. There are times where it does happen, and it really depends on a lot of factors. There was this one time where I was with somebody for a while. It was a longer term relationship, and we broke up. And it was also like a really hot and heavy, sexy relationship, and it was sad. I was sad. She was sad. We were upset that it broke up, but it was the right thing to do. And then the next person that I landed up having sex with, it was the first time I ever had this experience where when I was having sex with them, my hands were sort of like searching for the old body that I used to have sex with, the body that was attached to my ex. And I couldn't, the new person had different curves and had different parts, and it just felt really wrong. And I never had that really physical, visceral experience before, and that clued me into not really being ready for what I was currently doing in the moment. So I had to take a break, and that comparison was upsetting to me. So you have to ask yourself, are these comparisons upsetting to you? Are they getting in the way of connecting in a way that you want? Are they getting in the way of emotionally open up? Are they getting in the way where you're never giving somebody a fair chance, right? But if it's just sort of like, oh, my ex's favorite color was red and this new person's is blue, then who gives a shit, right? Great advice. Great advice. Okay, next question. What advice do you have for young therapists that are finishing grad school? It's interesting. I live in the state of Oregon, as you know, and the state of Oregon is doing something that we don't fucking like at all, which is they're trying to funnel new graduates into nonprofits and agencies to start their internships there, where they collect all of their hours, maybe 2,000 to 3,000 hours, in order to become a licensed therapist or social worker. And then you can go off and start your private practice. So they're making it a little more difficult for us to do that. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, but we don't like it. We kind of hate that Oregon is doing that. I would recommend you go ahead and start your own private practice and get yourself a supervisor and find yourself a community and a consultation group and really start there. You can start, charging a sliding scale fee because you're still working on your license and you're talking to a supervisor. The benefits, though, to working at a nonprofit or agency or hospital or group setting is that you have the community built in and that your supervisor, maybe, hopefully, is right down the hall whenever you need them, right? Or there's like people, other therapists that you can consult with there. Things have changed a little bit because everything's so online, but hopefully you would work at a center where there's this built-in community and you get, guidance every day if that's what you're looking for. The private practice is a little bit lonely. However, what else do I have to recommend for young therapists? Don't work outside of your scope, but don't only primarily work within your scope. Go ahead and accept different clients that might be slightly outside your comfort zone, but that you have the appropriate supervision for. I know that one of the things that I was really anxious about when I was a new therapist was, how am I going to fill the 60 minutes? Am I going to have enough to say? Turns out I've never had a problem filling the 60 minutes. And you might think that I'm like a real talker when I'm a therapist, but obviously I'm not talking as much and the client is doing a lot more talking. So a lot of it is just sort of relying on the therapeutic relationship that you're creating. And there's been like lots of studies and research out there that has shown that the 80% of the healing that happens in therapy is due to the relationship that you have with your therapist. So if you can have a comforting, compassionate, empathetic connection with your client, you are giving them really good therapy already. The next 20% are all the theories and interventions that you're going to be playing with, right? So have fun. It's okay to make jokes as long as they're not poorly timed jokes, but have some levity in the room. Know that you can just be compassionate and empathetic, and that is oftentimes good enough, although don't stop there, right? Always keep growing with the different theories and techniques that you could bring into the office. It's going to get easier as you move forward, and you're going to be fine. There you go. Next question. Can you get romance/attraction back when it's been lost in a long-term relationship/marriage? Yeah, you can. But you really got to work on it. Attraction ebbs and flows. Sometimes you're feeling like you're really not attracted to your person. It eventually comes back. It's determined. A lot of times there's a bunch of variables that are affecting it, right? Like work stress, world stress. Is, are you doom scrolling too much? Is there something really good on TV? Right. And then just sort of when you're in a relationship and there's been a lot of security and a strong foundation and you're feeling really safe, sometimes that isn't super spicy, right? Sometimes that's not incredibly hot. A lot of times hotness and a horniness comes from passion and novelty and newness and risk taking, right? And new bodies that you're having sex with. That's why, the honeymoon period can be so hot and sexy. Also, understand that there's just something inside of us that is always seeking newness, newness and novelty, which I know is redundant, is something that we're constantly seeking, whether we like it or not, whether you're in touch with it or not. That is a huge, huge turn on. And that's why sometimes after the honeymoon period or after a couple years of fucking somebody, you start to have sex with them, but also fantasize about doing it to them in a different environment, or doing it with another person, or doing a threesome or a swinging or whatever, where you're not doing it, you're just fantasizing. And sometimes those are the things that can really get you turned on in the moment. So allow yourself to fantasize if that's what you need. But I would say, I'd lose my fucking therapist license if I didn't say you should communicate this with your partner in a way where you're not hey, I'm bored as fuck having sex with you, but in a way of just hey, how do we spice things up? How can we get that energy going? What can we do that's new? And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Imagine you're on a love show, a love reality show, like a Bachelor or something. And on The Bachelor, they take them, or on Love is Blind or whatever, they take them to all these crazy, beautiful adventures, and they do traveling, or they do naked bungee jumping or cave diving, or they race a car together, or they compete against other people, whatever. And all those things, get the testosterone going, you get the dopamine hits going, and then you fall in love with somebody. You can fall in love with somebody in less than 2 months on a dating reality show, or you can just create your own reality show inside of your relationship. Next question. 6 weeks into moving in with my girlfriend and mourning old life, how long is reasonable adjustment? You're okay. So you're 6 weeks into moving in and you're grieving your old life. Nothing wrong with this. Very normal. I am not concerned. No red flags. You will always grieve your life to a certain extent, whether it's moving in with them, or you had a kid with them, or you got married to them. There's always the what if, right? But if there's a strong feeling of grief and sadness about your old life, get in touch with it. Talk to friends about it or your therapist about it. If it's something that your partner wants to hear about and can have emotional, bandwidth or intelligence to support you, then talk to them about it. I want to give you like an answer though. That's not based on anything except for my like clinical opinions, but mostly my gut. Okay, so 6 weeks in, still feeling grief. How long is reasonable to adjust? I would say that grief should go down to a very low level that only gets triggered every now and then once you're 6 months into living with somebody. Before that, totally normal to have big, big griefs. But if you're a year into it and you're like, I miss my old life, that's something. Next question. Should I not get back together with an ex who is my soulmate and best friend? Okay, so hold on, I gotta take a drink here. If you are no longer with your soulmate, but you want to be with your soulmate / best friend because they are available and you want to give it another shot, then why would you not? I mean, is it just like a month after the breakup and you're feeling desperate for each other and the soulmate thing is just a projection because you're only focusing on positivity because you're in your grief stage inside the bargaining stage? Like, is it kind of like a reaction to the breakup, or are we 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years outside of the relationship? It's in the past, you're changed, they've changed, you've all grown, and you want to give it another shot because you're actual fucking soulmates? Then who am I to stop you? Get back together with them immediately, as long as they consent, obviously. Next question. How do you get over the awkwardness of sharing something vulnerable with a therapist? It's funny because I was going to say I've never really felt this being the client, but there have been maybe 2 or 3 things that I've felt really awkward and vulnerable about and didn't want to share. And I'm thinking about those things, and you're probably like, what are those things, Therapy Jeff? I'm not going to tell you because you're my therapist. I mean, that was a weird Freudian slip. You're not my therapist. I think I usually start out those sessions with, I really want to share something with you, but I'm scared. And then I allow my therapist to do their fucking job. This has happened to me dozens and dozens of times where clients have, hundreds of times probably, where clients have come in and they've talked about how they don't want to share, they feel awkward, or they feel cringy, or they feel embarrassed or humiliated or ashamed. And then I'm able to create a really safe environment that allows them to share in that session or allows them to share 20 sessions later, right? Where we just kind of keep on building on it. We sort of bump up against the thing that they want to share and then back off if it gets too overwhelming. So how do you get over the awkwardness? First, you tell them that you're feeling awkward before you do the share, if you want. If it's still feeling awkward after the share, you start with that the next session and let them work their therapy magic. We're trained to handle this situation. This is a very common situation in therapy. Next question. How much arguing is too much arguing in a healthy relationship? I always say that it's not how many arguments you get into, but it's about how you repair in the arguments. Like, are the arguments allowing you to grow? Are you learning new valuable information about each other? Are you able to accept each other, problem solve through the arguments? Does it create eventually a feeling of closeness because you're able to get through these things and you feel really proud of yourselves and you're connecting on a more intimate level? However, sometimes too many fights will break you up, even if you're able to repair most of them. And I don't get to tell you how many fights are too many fights. You know, if you're asking this question, it might be too many fights. It doesn't mean that you should break up. It means that you should have a really serious talk with your partner about, like, how do we fucking get into less fights? What the fuck is going on here? Although, you know what? This is my last episode. I want to give you an answer that isn't like such a therapist-y fucking answer. How much arguing is too much arguing in a healthy relationship? I'd say arguing once a week is real normal. I'd say arguing twice a week is like pretty normal. Arguing 3 times a week, getting too abnormal. 4 times a week or more, way too fucking much. The thing is that, like, if you just argue once a week, which I say is pretty average, it also depends on how intense that argument is. Are you being really mean to each other? Are you just like dead afterwards? Is it really hard to recover? Because if it's like a huge, huge epic fight, you only want that once every 3 to 6 months, right? But if it's just like normal fights, like, you're being such a fucking asshole right now, or why don't you ever wash the dishes, or we never listen to my music, I'm going to fight you on this, then, like, no big deal. Okay, I like that answer. Okay, next one. Do you ever plan on voicing/releasing your book on Audible? Do I plan on it? I sure do, and it's already out. It was planned right when it was released. Did you know I wrote a book called Big Dating Energy? Man, it is a really good book. It is co-written with my ex-wife, Kate Happ. We were writing partners while we were married, and we continued to be writing partners after we divorced 5 years ago. And it's a really, really fun book with lots of really great advice. It is super readable and very funny. You can get it on Audible. You can get the ebook. You can get the Kindle version. Or you can just buy the fucking hard copy. It's great. It was a really... I did not enjoy the process. The only thing I liked about writing this book was the actual writing of the book, which took about 4 or 5 months. But the whole thing took almost 2 years, from writing a proposal, shopping it around. And keep in mind that, like, I shopped it around, I don't know, 2.5 years ago or so, when Therapy Jeff was peaking. But it was also the time where lots of book publishers were taking chances on TikTokers and they didn't know what was going to happen, if this was a good idea or a bad idea. And so I got multiple offers. I got a 6-figure signing bonus, which is great, which is lovely. Then we started writing the book, and I didn't like the editing process, but who does like the editing process? I didn't like how much they were asking me to do when it came to marketing, because I was doing a lot of marketing, and I was like, what are you going to fucking do? When are you going to do the marketing? They did a little bit. They tried to do a lot. I don't know if they tried to do a lot, but they did a little bit, and to me, it wasn't enough. In the end, I wish I would have gone solo and done like self-publishing if I was going to write a book at all, because I would have made a lot more money. Did you know that, like, when you're negotiating a book deal, oftentimes they give you something between 10 and 15% royalties. You have to sell a certain amount of books to make back your the initial investment that they gave you, and then once you sort of make back a certain amount, then you can start getting royalties. And they're like, at the most, we'll give you 15% royalties if you sell this many books. And I was like, I'm going to make 15% off of every book sold. I was like, flip that, bitch. Are you kidding me? You make 15%. I make 85%. I'm writing the book with my co-author. It is going to be marketed through my platform that I'm doing all the work for. Like, what is going on? What are you going to do that's so special? You're going to print it and bind it? Whatever. Anyways, I was a real drag to work with as an author. I can acknowledge this. I think that the book publishing industry is a fucking dumpster fire, and it's a bunch of garbage bullshit where like the top CEOs at all of these publishing places are just kind of pieces of shit that don't know what they're fucking doing, and they're not actually readers. My whole publishing, like the people that I work with, publishing company, like the editor and marketing and all those folks, like they're great and lovely and sweet, but it's not their fault that they're in a stupid, disgusting, dying field run by men that don't know what they're fucking doing, right? Anyways, next question. Buy the book. It's actually a good book. Steal the book. Steal the book from your local Barnes and Noble or Target, or yeah, it's probably pretty easy to steal from Target. Okay. Next question. Okay. I've got maybe like 10 minutes or so left here, and then I'm going to bid you adieu, and you're going to find me on the next podcast because you're going to pay attention to my Instagram stories and all my contents about my new podcast, which I'm very excited about, and I have no idea when it's going to debut. All right. How do I know when I'm ready to date again? You just know. Next question. Well, okay, I'm not going to be that snarky. How do you know when you're ready to date? You have a desire. You have accepted that you're a work in progress, and you don't have to be like a certain amount of healthy. But you're feeling more optimistic than pessimistic. That's not a requirement, but that is a good thing. You're interested. You're curious. You're a little excited. Have some enthusiasm about it. You can be guarded. You can be like, the dating landscape is a dumpster fire and it's really difficult. That's just part of like, that is happening. But so you also have to kind of understand going into it, you need to have some boundaries, and maybe it's boundaries around how much time you spend on dating apps or how much time you spend going on dates. Make sure that you have like a balanced sort of life where you spend time with friends and work or school and creative projects, or just sort of alone time, listening to podcasts and watching Therapy Jeff content, right? Like mix all of that in, and also do dates so that dating doesn't just sort of take over, right? I think that you'll know when you're ready in your gut, but I think that you'll get the best understanding of readiness when you go out on a few dates and you see how you feel about them. So I can't really tell you. You can tell yourself as long as you're honest with yourself after a date or two or three. Next question. Long-term partner is treating me poorly because of mental health. When to keep trying versus leave. This is a tricky one, and this is one that I always struggle with and have struggled with a lot in my past relationships. Doing better with it now, but still a thing, where if somebody is treating me in a way that I'm not super thrilled about, but it's because they're struggling with their own mental health issues, I'm so compassionate and I just kind of allow it. I mean, I have some limits and rules and boundaries about what I'm going to take and how much I can give emotionally and yada yada. But when somebody is treating me a way that I don't like, or is acting in a way that's not super attractive, but it's because they're feeling severe depression, which is a mental health issue, or it's because they're feeling incredibly insecure because of trauma from the past, then I'm so much more non-judgmental and open to it. But I still get to decide if I want to go on that journey with them. Likely, the person you're with, hopefully, or the person that I'm with, is doing work in order to improve their mental health issues, just like I am. And if I can see that progress is being made, even if it's slow progress, even if it's progress that's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, 3 steps back, but eventually kind of goes forward, then those are my requirements. There needs to be progress going at some sort of pace, even if it's slow. They need to be honest with themselves about what issues they're struggling with and what their plan is to address it. Be honest with me, then I'm feeling good about it. Even so, even if all those things are in place, I can still be like, I don't want to go on this journey with you because I'm pulling away, because I'm lacking compassion. I'm feeling compassion fatigue. I'm having a hard time connecting with you. I maybe don't want to have this as an issue as we move throughout our lives together, right? Because this is something that could reoccur, and if all the variables or stressors are in place. So when you keep trying versus leaving, again, I wish I could answer this question for you, but this is up to you. You have to figure out what you can tolerate so that you're not disconnecting from the relationship and that you're not resenting them. That's kind of the line. Okay. A few more questions. We have been together for 5 years. We are like roommates. How to get sex and intimacy back? I already answered this question. How to date when you still miss your ex? Allow yourself to miss them. There's a handful of exes that will always hold a special place in my heart, and I love that for me, and I love that for them. Every now and then, there's a little bit of grief for some old relationships. A few unique things that relationship or person offered me that I'll never get to experience again, and that's sad. I'm feeling sad right now thinking about some of those things. However, it's not getting in the way of me connecting, and that means that I can miss my exes in a way that isn't so overwhelming that I can't show up in my authentic self, in my authentic way. Next question, how to work on giving those close to you the benefit of the doubt. I always feel critical. It sucks because this is such an important part of a relationship, is giving the benefit of the doubt. It's tricky because you want to give your partner the benefit of the doubt, and you also want them to understand what the impact has been on you if they've had a negative impact on you. So as long as they can take accountability for the negative impact they've had on you, great. We love to see it. And it makes you able to give them more of the benefit of the doubt. So it's not just a thing. I mean, it might just be a thing that you need to work on. Maybe you need to give the benefit of the doubt to more people in your life, but you can more easily give it if your partner is also doing work in order to make sure that they're not like negatively affecting you as much. But it is such a crucial thing in relationships and creates so much health and safety and long-term longevity to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. Remember that you love them, that they didn't mean it, that, as long as they can talk about how they didn't mean it, take responsibility for the negative impact that they had, but they can tell you about their really good intentions, then you'll be able to give them the benefit of the doubt. And value their good intentions. If they're not purposely trying to hurt you or cause you suffering, then hopefully you can give them the benefit of the doubt. Okay, maybe a couple more questions. Let's see what questions you have for me. The question is, watching videos of the LA fires has been very sad and overwhelming. Is that normal? Of course it's normal. I grew up in Santa Monica, which is in Los Angeles and is right next to the Palisades, which has essentially burnt down. I have family in Santa Monica. They're all fine. They're all safe. They're going to be okay. It doesn't look like the fires are going to reach Santa Monica. It's just right on the border of Santa Monica. And where the house that I grew up in, the neighborhood that I grew up in, I haven't lived there for 20 years, so I don't have the same connection that everybody else has who's currently living there. I don't have all my stuff that's been burnt down or being threatened to be burnt down. It's agonizing thinking about what if all of my stuff went up in flames. I would be so upset. And there'd be a handful of things that I would be extremely upset about, right? I have a big old retro video game collection that I could replace, but it's not the video games that if I replaced it, it wouldn't be the video games, the cartridges that I actually played when I was 10 years old, right? And I have so many flannels, 60 to 70 flannels that I've collected throughout my lifetime that I love so much and have so many stories connected to them. I have 100 band tees, right, from my favorite decade, the 90s, that all have a story. I have ticket stubs from some of my favorite concerts that I've ever gone to. I have pictures, actual printed pictures from my teenage days when wasn't when everything wasn't digitized. I have so many tiny little things that I've saved that I wouldn't be able to collect before I left my house if a fire was approaching. Oh God, I feel so like sad and upset thinking about what that would be like for me. I feel so sad and upset that a ton of people are experiencing that right now. I feel better when I donate to GoFundMe's. Make sure you are checking those GoFundMe's though, which is it's a sad state of affairs when we have to make sure the GoFundMe is a real GoFundMe and it's not a scam GoFundMe. Um, I feel better when I talk to people that are also feeling the same. I feel better when I keep an eye on what's going on, so I'm not just sort of divorcing myself from the reality of the situation. I post about it a little bit online, and that makes me feel better that I'm spreading awareness or allowing people to look at it in a different way that maybe they haven't. Is it normal that you're feeling overwhelmed? It would be abnormal if you weren't feeling overwhelmed. I'm not shaming people that are not thinking about it. You're doing what you need to do in order to like preserve your mental health. So pay attention to it or don't pay attention to it. I'd say go ahead and like keep an eye on it, even if you're not interested in it, just to kind of like know what's happening in the world. Just like with any big event that's happening across the world. If you have to ignore it, though, in order to preserve your mental health and have a good day, that's okay. That makes sense. Just because people are suffering, it doesn't mean that you have to suffer as well. That's not going to help those that are suffering. It would be good if you're feeling empathetic. It would be good if you're donating or giving energy in a way that's helpful to everybody that's suffering in Los Angeles. It was really devastating for me personally to see the videos of driving down Pacific Coast Highway, which was it's the highway right on the coast where Malibu is, where you can see the ocean as you're driving down. It's a very famous highway, as you've probably heard of before. And I've did that drive hundreds of times as a kid. And it was always a really special drive. It was always usually me turning down the music to really take in the scenery. And now that, stretch of land is all burnt down, and it's really sad to see. It looks like it's a hellscape, like an apocalypse down there. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be living there right now. Okay, anyways, I'm going to end it on that note, which is kind of fucked, but whatever. This is the last podcast. I am so glad that you all stuck with me until the end. I am so excited to be connected with you again in a new podcast that I have no idea will come out, but probably in the next 2 or 3 months, I'm guessing. Who knows? Thank you so much for being on this journey. I love you all. Goodbye.